Ever stop and wonder how it all works? How does Netflix actually stream a movie to your screen? How can you play a game online with a friend who's halfway across the world? It all boils down to this fundamental concept, a sort of digital handshake. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the secret language of the internet, socket programming.
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? It feels like magic, but I promise you it's not. It's actually this beautifully designed system of addresses and endpoints that creates order out of the pure chaos of the internet. And the key to unlocking all of it is something called a socket.
Okay, so before any conversation can even start, you've got to know where you're going. In the digital world, we call this a socket address. Just think of it like a real-world mailing address. The IP address, that's the giant office building, Google's main server complex. But that's not enough. The port number is the specific door inside that building. It tells the data exactly which office to go to.
Right, so if the socket address is the complete phone number, then the socket itself is the actual telephone. It's the physical, digital thing in your hand. It's the endpoint. And for any conversation to happen, you need two of them. One on your end, the client, and one on the server's end.
Now, it turns out not all internet chats are created equal. There are really two main styles. First, you've got stream sockets, using a protocol called TCP. The best analogy is a phone call. You dial, you connect, and then you have a reliable back-and-forth conversation where every word is heard in order. Then you have datagram sockets, using UDP. This is way more like mailing a letter. You just send it and hope for the best. No connection needed, but the letters might show up out of order or maybe not at all.
For the important stuff, the things that absolutely have to be perfect, like loading a website or sending an email, you're going to want that phone call method. So, for the rest of this explainer, we're going to stick with these super reliable stream sockets.
This whole thing, this process of setting up a connection, isn't random. It's not a free-for-all. It's actually a very specific, choreographed set of steps. I like to think of it as a kind of digital dance between two partners. The client, that's you, and the server, the computer you're trying to reach.
And in this dance, the server always leads. It has to get ready first. It can't just start accepting data from nowhere. It needs to open up the phone line and get prepared to listen for a ring.
And it does that in 4 very specific steps. First, it creates the socket. It gets the phone. Second, it uses a function called bind to attach that phone to a specific address and port. It plugs it into the wall jack. Third, it starts to listen. It turns the ringer on. And finally, when a call comes in, it runs accept. It picks up the phone.
That bind step? Yeah, that's a huge deal. That's the exact moment the server plants its flag and tells the entire internet, hey, if you want to talk to me, I'm right here, at this specific address and this specific door.
And in a real program, it looks a little something like this. The server is binding to localhost, which is just a fancy word for this computer right here, and it's picking port number 12345. As of this line of code, it is officially open for business.
All right, the server is ready, the phone line is open, and it's just waiting. Now it's the client's turn. The client is the active partner here. It's the one that's going to initiate the whole thing. The client's job is way simpler. First, it creates its own socket. It gets its own phone. Then it uses the connect function, feeding it the server's public address and port. It is literally dialing the server's number and ringing its phone from across the internet. And bam! When the server, which is in that accept state, gets the client's connect request, the connection is made. A private two-way line is now open just for them. The dance is over, the setup is done, and now the conversation can finally start.
So, what does that look like? The line's open, the phones are picked up on both ends, they can finally exchange information using a couple of really simple commands.
In our little drama, the client, since it made the call, decides to speak first. It bundles up a message and uses the send method to just push it right through the socket, over the network, to the server. And the message is as simple as it gets, just a friendly, hello, server. And because we're using that reliable phone call style connection, that message is guaranteed to arrive perfectly intact.
Over on the server's end, it's been waiting patiently. It uses the receive, short for receive, method to grab that incoming message. Once it has it, it can think about a reply and use its own send method to fire one back.
And this is perfect. It shows you it's a two-way street. The server confirms it got the message and sends its own greeting back. The client can now use its own receive method to read that reply, and just like that, they've had a full, successful conversation.
So let's just do a super quick recap. A socket is an endpoint. The full address is the IP plus the port number. The server does its little three-step. It binds, listens, and then accepts. The client has one job: connect. Once they're linked, they both use send and receive to chat. And when it's all over, they both close the connection. They hang up the phone.
So why does any of this matter? Because this exact dance, this same sequence, is happening billions of times a second all over the planet. It is the hidden engine powering pretty much everything you do online. Every single tab you have open in your web browser right now has done this dance to open a socket to a server.
Which kind of leaves you with a wild thought, doesn't it? Right now, on your device, there are probably dozens of apps performing this exact dance, opening sockets and having silent little conversations in the background. So the question is, what are they all talking about?